Roscoe, thanks for coming in, mate. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Why are you here? Tell us how you got here.
Wow, what a question.
Wow, let's just start off. You were in Brisbane, right? You were passing through, and you flicked me a text a few days ago saying, "Tim, I'll be driving past Dead Cow Gully. How about we drop in and do a podcast?"
Yeah, well, I had got an invite from you a little while ago to say, "Hey, I want you as a guest," and my first thought was, "Why?" And then I thought, well, I don't mind catching up with Tim at all, so I'll just, on my way past, see if we can wrangle the timelines and the schedules to see if we can make it happen. And
Awesome,
here we
mate.
are.
Mate, I might get you to move your mic around just a bit, like if you see how I do it.
Yep.
We had some issues with Tammy and
Sure.
Cole, and we spent all this time trying to work out, was it the actual connection or was it the mic? Don't know. Now, mate, your normal day job is as a ABC presenter, and you're usually talking on the mic during the week. You've come here on your Sunday to talk on the mic. So I was sort of thinking, mate, it's like a bloody plumber or an electrician doing a job on a Sunday.
Yep.
What were you thinking?
It's funny, I'm really lucky in that I've got one of those jobs that, this sounds silly to say, but if I didn't have to worry about money, I'd probably still do it. So getting out and having a chat with people, I don't mind doing that at all. It's good fun, and it's another flex of the radio muscle. You know, it's if anything, it's making me more match fit. It's I'm training outside of office hours.
So, mate, how did you get into radio? Like, I don't know much about your backstory. All I know really is you interviewed me a couple of times for the ABC radio up in Bundaberg, and you've been to Dead Cow a few training runs, but you've actually done the event twice.
I have.
So, mate, let's just start off with your day job.
The day job. Okay, so right now I work for the ABC. I've been doing that for probably about 15 years and working in radio overall since I left school. So that would be about 25 years. Wow. And I was the kid who always listened to the radio. It was on in the kitchen all the time in our farmhouse. And so you got to know the presenters, you got to know who they were and what songs they played and what songs they liked or didn't like. We had John Law's on, John Law's morning show on the radio. And so Mum would listen to Lawsy and the radio would just stay on all day. Request shows at night, and I always loved that if I got my radio, and by my radio I mean my 2 cassette tape deck, portable tape deck, and if I at night went through the FM frequency, I was picking up stations that I couldn't pick up during the day. And it's because the atmosphere is different. You might there's less interference, there's less solar interference, so I could hear radio stations from further away. If you were really having a good day, depending on the atmosphere, depending on where the moon was, or if a particular station was bouncing a signal off the ionosphere, you could pick up radio stations from around the world.
Oh, wow.
And you still can.
Yeah.
You still can. But I remember my dad and he had a big radio in the dairy, and he had AM, FM and shortwave as well.
Wow.
And we just spent an afternoon flicking through, listening to different radio stations because the alignment somewhere was right.
Jeez. Do you need a big antenna for that?
No, not at all.
Really? And they still have shortwave radio? Can you still get it?
Oh, in some locations you can. There were a few spots in sort of Cape York where shortwave was still a thing, but I think they sort of all transitioned to if FM or AM if it's going to be anything, AM is great when you're dealing with distances because the signal's like it was described to me by an old tech guy as it's a worm. It's a worm that sort of crawls along the ground and it'll go up the hill and it'll go down the other side of the hill. So it's for really long distances. Really? Whereas FM, line of sight. So I can broadcast from me if I'm on a really high hill to you, but if you're the hill on the other side of the valley, it actually can't get over the top of it if it can't see over it.
Mate, why do we have AM and FM? Like, is it just different frequencies? And why is most of the listening on FM as opposed to AM? Like, if you're turning on the radio, all the good stations or the popular stations are on FM, and then if you go to AM, there's just not much happening at all. What's the go with that?
Oh, now as someone who works on AM radio, there's heaps happening on AM radio. Yeah, of course there is. So it just comes down to the technology. We had AM radio first, and then slowly they discovered that with extra bandwidth and different frequencies, you can broadcast more information. So that's why, and then when FM came out, instead of just one channel of audio, like AM, you can now broadcast 2 channels of audio. But the thing is, AM's not actually limited to that. For a while, I want to say in the mid-'80s, there was going to be the next wave of radio listening in Australia, AM stereo. AM stereo was coming, and it never quite took off. Like Betamax video players or HD DVDs. It just never quite took off because all of a sudden FM was there. You had left and right in your stereo, literally stereo, and the audio quality was so much better. So FM is better quality, but it's line of sight. So it's like a mobile phone tower. It'll go as far as it can see.
Gotcha.
Whereas AM, lower quality, but the distance it can cover is massive.
So your local stations, like your community radio and your local stations, tend to be AM? Is that correct?
Tend to be FM usually.
FM, right. Okay.
Community stations, yeah. I started my radio career out of high school. I had a friend of the family who said, you should give this a go. And Colac Public Radio in southwest Victoria, I rang them up and said, hi, I'd like to be on the radio. And they're like, okay. And the guy in charge was very kind, and he said, oh, we actually need someone to do like the mornings show 2 days a week. And so over the summer between high school and university, that's what I did. I went in and I played music that I liked from all the CDs that I had. I also would occasionally run out of CDs, freak out, go, what do I do? So the radio station was up the top of some very well-worn steps at the top on the second floor of the Sports Power store in Colac. So there was Sports Power down the bottom and then radio station up the top. You had to go around the side, dodge the pigeons, and then you could get into the really dodgy radio station at the time.
Is this Colac? Is that Victoria?
This is Colac in Victoria that you may know from running, where they used to have the 6-day race.
That's right. So this is where you grew up?
This is where I grew up.
Oh, gotcha. So you're Victorian.
So I'm a Victorian.
Right.
Yep. 3-4 doors up.
Sorry, I'll just stop you there. And you said did you grow up on a farm? You talked about listening to the radio in the farmhouse. What sort of farm were we talking about?
We had a dairy farm. We had a 6-a-side herringbone dairy that took Dad forever to milk the cows.
Yeah, right.
It just took, so long. He would milk the cows very early in the morning until sort of mid-morning. On the weekends, I'd hose down the yard. And then he'd do a few things, have a rest, and then start milking the cows of an evening.
So you're a country boy, mate. Was there any pressure to become a farmer yourself or take over the property?
No.
So your parents were very supportive once you went down this road of
they knew
radio?
There was no chance. I was not that kid.
Well, it was them to blame for playing the radio in the first place, wasn't it?
It was always on. I don't know who turned it on, to be fair. So maybe it's my fault for not turning it off. I don't know.
Dead Cow Gully is one of the most talked about events on the running calendar. 6.7 Ks each hour, every hour, until the last one is standing. We're located on a 1,600 acre working cattle property, and we've called this place home for about 150 years. We would love for you to come out and check out the action. But last year, we sold all the tickets in about 14 hours, so you need to get in quick to secure your spot. Tickets will go on sale this year at 6 p.m, September 25. Lock in this date, 6 p.m, September 25. You can register through our website, deadcowgully.com.au, or on our Facebook or Instagram page. Thank you. You said you got into radio late high school.
End of high school.
And
so high school had finished, university hadn't started.
Gotcha. Let's go back to that. Yeah.
I was playing all the music that I could think of after listening to Triple J for a few years, and also if I ran out of music, I would run up to the corner music shop and buy like 2 or 3 singles of new stuff. So it was like, I'm gonna play Bachelor Girl, Buses and Trains, because why not? That was brand new in the singles stand when they were a thing. So we did that for sort of 6 months. Really, it wasn't 6 months. It was maybe 2, maybe 3 months. And then uni started, and there was an ad on the radio, the one that I grew up listening to, where they needed someone to come in and work on a Sunday, press the buttons to make sure that the football went to air. So you just had to come in and make sure that when the football went to air, everything was good, and when they went for a break, there was enough ads.
This was a paid job?
This was a paid job, commercial radio.
Yeah, wow.
And my mum said, I've listened to this and I think you should do it because you've done radio things now and you should do this. All right, no worries. Rang him up and got a very nice gentleman who was the program manager. His name was Mark Vale, and he just said, I told him what I'd been doing. He's like, yeah, come in, have a chat, took me through, nicest guy, and took me through everything. No worries, when can you start? I can start this weekend. Done, no worries. Within this, and as is often the case in commercial radio, came in the following week and they've gone, oh, just so you know, Mark's just finished with us. He no longer works here. That was repositioning the brand, had moved on. Sudden changes in commercial radio world happens all the time.
So, right. So you grew up listening to the radio. What fascinated you about working in radio? Like, what was it about it that you were attracted to it for some reason? I know because listening to the radio at home is very different from actually working in a live broadcast.
They just seemed so connected. They seemed so connected to everything. They seemed so on top of everything that was happening.
The presenters you're talking about.
The presenters, yeah. They were playing the best music at the time, because that's what they told us. This was the best music. That was the tagline. There was something about it because they were talking to me. They weren't talking to everyone else. Radio's not a broadcast medium where you are talking to a whole bunch of people. Radio is one-to-one.
Good
point. Just like podcasts are.
Yeah,
because right now I'm talking to you, but I'm also talking to you who's listening to this right now.
True.
So I'm talking to 2 people right now. So that's radio, that's audio. It's really personal. And there was something that really interested me about that.
And it's a long format. It's not like TV broadcasting where the nightly news might be half an hour, or if they do an opinion piece, it's only for a few minutes. It's sort of pre-packaged. There must be something about live radio and talking to different people long format. So your actual show, how long does that last? Is it 2 or 3 hours? How long is your show each day?
So when I'm the mornings presenter, so at the moment I'm the mornings presenter at ABC Wide Bay. That's my job. I'm doing a little bit of a side hustle at the moment with the lovely folks at ABC Audio on Demand.
Gotcha.
And so for the last 12 months, I've been out making podcasts and short form stories.
Really?
So a great podcast recommendation is You Don't Know Me. It's Virginia Trioli's podcast.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was a great segment that she'd been doing on the radio for ages, and they said, what can you do with this? And so I turned it into a podcast. First season's out now, all 12 episodes available wherever you get your favourite podcasts.
So what's your involvement?
I'm all over the shop, mate.
Because isn't that's a TV thing as well?
No. I've never been a TV person. Right. I've always been a radio person.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing a little bit of a stint with the Audio on Demand crew. I'll go back to my job middle of the year, and so mornings presenter on ABC Wide Bay. I'll host the mornings program during the week, and that's an hour, a couple of hours. Might do the breakfast show.
So with the podcast, do they just send you the files and you make it into a podcast? Because you can't. This is Virginia would be down south.
Virginia's in Melbourne. She works at ABC Melbourne. She's the mornings presenter there.
Gotcha.
And she has this segment on the radio on a Friday called You Don't Know Me. She asks 7 questions of a famous person like yourself and draws out interesting answers. And then so there's a whole bank of them. She's been doing it for years. So
she's interesting, isn't she? Because she's gone from TV to radio, and a lot of people would be saying, well, that's well, it's bad to say. People might think that's a downgrade. People would be usually, is it thought that being on TV is a step up from radio because you got more public exposure because you're actually on film? But it's interesting what she's done. I actually really respect what she's done. And do you know her personally?
I've had a few conversations with her. She's great.
Yeah.
She's absolutely fantastic. She is an incredibly smart lady. She is thoughtful and considered and asks really good questions of people. And I don't know, man. Radio is – I can only speak for myself when I say that the joy in one of the joys in radio is its immediacy, because it's on right now. If you needed it to be. And that's one of the wonderful things about working for the ABC is that we do emergency broadcasting. So, we're here at Runnymede, and if there was a bushfire down the road, all of a sudden could get on the radio and let everyone know in the area that there is a bushfire. And with hopefully as much detail as they needed to make themselves safe. And that's entirely what it's about. And you can do that as soon as someone hands you the bit of paper, prints it off for you, or puts it up on the screen. You need to get on and you need to read this. And it's on the radio like that.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
TV takes time.
While we're on this, mate, because I guess before these 24-hour news channels, the radio would have been the number one source for like emergency information, like flooding, bushfires, anything really.
Yep.
Now you're seeing a lot of bushfire messages come up on ABC News 24 and all that type of thing.
Bushfire, floods, cyclones, you name it.
What are people since these 24-hour news channels on TV? Have you lost some of your viewership or your listenership to these?
I don't know.
You're not really sure of the data on that?
No, I don't. I'm not. But all I would say is radio is immediate. As TV can be quite immediate too. But I can give you the information on radio straight up. I can tell you what is happening because it's been relayed to us either via someone who's called in, via an official emergency service, however it comes in. TV can tell you about it too. You don't go to TV to hear things.
Sure.
You go to TV to see things.
Sure.
and all of that stuff takes a little bit longer because, you might have been out with the smartphone, just getting some vision and then sending it through to News 24. They've got to get that.
Takes time.
It takes time. Yeah.
And if it's a bushfire or something, you kind of want to know fairly quickly.
And by the time they get it on the air, that could be an hour old. So
too late.
this has happened, and it's not out of date, but it's not happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'd say that's the difference. Every medium has its moment. Has its purpose. Like newspapers, they are the record keeping of our time, and this thing happened on this day, and here are the photos, and here's the story. That's what newspapers are great at.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, mate, you got into commercial radio during university. Well, what were you studying at university?
I was studying a Bachelor of Attendance.
Attendance?
Yeah. The Bachelor of Arts.
Just turning up,
Just turning up.
Having a good time.
Having a great time.
Were you doing communications or something?
Yeah, of course I was.
Yeah.
Of course I was.
Great.
I did communications. I did philosophy. I did some business classes. Just a bit of everything, really, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, actually.
Sure.
But this radio thing just bubbled away in the background. I was working at one of the I'd since gone from the Colac radio station to the Warrnambool radio station, which was where I was also going to uni as well.
Yeah, right.
So that made sense. And I was getting to the end of my degree at Deakin, and I was like, what do I do? And if I wanted to look at radio, then I was on the cusp of getting a job in radio, because I had a lot of technical skills to be able to, mix audio. And so you need a 30-second commercial about a car yard. I can make you one of those, no problem. Piece of cake.
So during uni, were you mainly just in the editing room doing stuff, or were you actually doing voice? You're doing voice commercials already?
Not at all. No, none of that. The communications that I was doing was really theory based. So it was breaking down news stories, going through the means, the medium, and the message, and deconstructing the communications industry and how we communicate was not at all useful in terms of working in radio at all. It's good theory.
This is your degree?
This is my degree.
Oh, gotcha.
Totally.
So actually, when you were working at the station, what was your main job? Were you editing?
I was the absolute dog's body who said yes to everything.
Just odd jobs, this and that, bits and pieces.
Roscoe, we've got Barry Bissell's Take 40 Australia on 4 CDs here that's come in for the weekend. Mm-hmm. Can you set them up in 2 studios and record them into the computers? Absolutely,
Gotcha.
I can.
Gotcha.
So you set up the first hour 1 over here in Studio 1, in Studio 3. Then you go into Studio 2, you set up hour 2, and then you just sort of go back and forth. Hit stop on this one, set up the next one, go back. So you're doing 2 hours of recording at the one time. You had to record it in real time. Also, occasionally had to do the Sunday morning religion program, which would come in on reel-to-reel tape. Mm-hmm. So no CDs, not even cassettes. Big reel-to-reel. Lock it in place. Thread the tape. Hit play and record into the computer.
That's a pretty good apprenticeship, isn't it, mate? Like
great.
The amount of stuff you would have learned in those few years. When you were doing this, was there a desire to be the main man on the mic? Were you thinking it's just a matter of time? Or did you lack confidence back then? Or were you just too young and inexperienced to even think about being a presenter on the mic?
I knew it was going to, if I wanted to work in radio, that was going to be the next step. I wasn't overly into it, but I knew if I wanted to continue the career, that was where this path led. Yeah. If I enjoyed doing this other part where you talk on the wireless inevitably comes with it. So I got to a point, what happened was I went for a job. I was filling in as the production manager, so making your 30-second commercials for the local car yard, making sure that your big big chain furniture and electronics retailer. All of their commercials went to air. And I was doing that for like a month or two. They were employing me to do it 5 days or Monday to Friday. And then they said, well, look, we're just going to do this on a contract and then we're going to advertise the position. So I put in for it. And I remember dropping the letter on my program director's desk and then going into the studio to start work. She wasn't there. And then about 10 minutes later, she comes in with it in her hand. She goes, good, about bloody time. And then walks out. I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. And then I didn't get the job. Some other guy got the job and he had all the same experience that I had, but he'd done this course. He'd done this 12-month course at Swinburne around commercial radio.
Well, what was the name of the course?
So it's a graduate diploma of arts in commercial radio. It was at Swinburne University.
Gee, that's very specific. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's a really specific course. They only at the time they only were putting through about 14 people a year.
Kidding.
And so I worked with this guy who'd done that course. There was another guy in our office who'd also done that course, and I just sort of went, I need to do that course. Okay. If I want to get a job, I need to do this course.
So you'd already finished your degree at Deakin?
Yep.
You finished?
It was coming up. It was coming up to the last year.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, well, I need to get my act together.
Right. So this is an additional 12-month course on top of that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I've applied for that. I've then realised that, oh, man, to get my actual degree finished, I need to work over the summer. So I worked over the summer and did a couple of summer courses to get my points to where they needed to be so I could graduate that one and tick it off. And then got accepted into this 12-month course and lasted 8 months and then had a job.
Oh, wow.
Got a job offer before it was even finished.
Who with?
So it was with a radio station in Goulburn in New South Wales, 2GN and Eagle FM. And so I packed up my Tirana and my dad came up with me. He'd packed up my stuff in his ute and we convoyed the eight or so hours up the road to Goulburn in New South Wales, which just seemed like such an eternity away.
Sure.
It was so far at the time because living in Victoria, everything's so close together. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I went and worked in Goulburn. I worked there for about almost 4 years. And that was the best. That was the crash course in commercial radio. That was everything.
So you're in the big league now. What was your position there? Were you a presenter there?
Yeah. So when I started, I was the production manager. I was making the ads, and they said to me, we've got a position here for our daytime presenter. You're the daytime presenter. I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. Daytime presenter. What does that mean? This means you're on from 10 o'clock through until 3 o'clock every weekday. You'll do some weekend shifts as well. But this is you're on the radio.
5 hours.
Yep.
Live.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Not live.
Not live.
So the pressure's off a bit.
Well, then I got there and they said, welcome, you're our new production manager. I'm like, no, I'm the daytime presenter. I'm like, yeah, you're the production manager. What do you mean? Oh, you're making the ads. That's your job. You make the ads. Get into that sausage factory over there and start making some ads. I'm like, am I supposed to be the daytime presenter? They're like, oh, yeah. Get in really early and do that. If you could do that in about an hour, that'd be great. Oh. You need to go through and put down all your do your recording for that and get that done. And then we've really got to get these ads done.
You're doing everything.
Well, yeah. I don't know about everything, but so it was get in the morning, bright and early, record my shift, put it all together. So 10 o'clock through until 3 o'clock, try and be chirpy and happy and remember that you know everything about every song because that's what every listener expects.
Okay. So you've got 5 hours to fill, and in those 5 hours you've got music, ads, and yourself talking.
Yep.
And what time do you have to get into the station to start recording this?
Oh, I was probably getting in about 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, yeah.
On air by 10, so 8 o'clock, jump in the studio, have it. If I'm really good, I'll have it done by 9. So it'll go news break, 5-minute news, 3, do a weather read, 3 songs, talk break, another 3 songs, maybe another 2 songs, talk break, another 2 songs, talk break. So that's your 30 minutes ad-free every hour. Then talk break, so ad break, another maybe 2 or 3 songs, talk, then maybe another 2 songs, talk.
So how do you know what songs to select?
Oh, I don't do that.
Oh, you don't select the songs?
No.
Wow.
The music director does that.
So you just rock up and talk. What are you talking about? The songs themselves?
You can talk about the songs. You can talk about what's going on around you, what's going on in town, local community events. Are there sponsored announcements you might have to do? You're in commercial radio, after all. You've got to pay the bills. So community announcements are terrific because it means you're a part of the community. But also, Barry's Cars have also paid a lot of money to advertise their vehicles, and the latest 4-door hatchback from Barry's Cars is at a sizzling hot price. You need to get down. You need to get down there right now and talk to Barry himself, because he does actually want to hear from you, and he's got a special deal if you mention whatever radio station you're listening to.
So that's your commercial realities of a commercial station. There,
it's a business.
This is how you pay the bills.
Yep.
So, wow, was there any direction about what you should be doing in that time slot? Was it just basically look after the sponsors? What about, did you have people call in and interview people on the phone? Like, was there any?
Wasn't really any room for that.
Mainly you talking, right?
It was basically, that slot was mostly around music. So it's be knowledgeable about the music.
Gotcha.
Know what you're talking about. You love every song, and help people enjoy their workday and keep them listening. This is a little bit out of school, but keep them listening for the next 15 minutes. Tell you what's coming up. You know that song that you can't get out of your head? I'm going to play it for you in the next 15 minutes because you need to get it out of your head.
You got to dangle that carrot.
Yep. Because I want you to keep listening. Because the ads are coming in 15 minutes. And if I can get you on for another 15 minutes, then if we happen to be doing a survey, then you'll mark down in that little block that you've been listening to the radio station, that radio station for the last 15 minutes.
So that's a real skill, which obviously you would have honed through time, just practice and experience. And could you see the numbers of, do you know how many people are listening to you? Like, can you see the data on that or not?
Unless
really?
they do survey, no, you can't. You have an idea. And so we had at the time when I was there, which was almost 20 years ago now, we had a breakfast presenter, we had a day presenter, and we had an evenings presenter. That's really rare nowadays. You will probably more than likely have a breakfast team. You might have a midday presenter who's also the guy doing the ads. You might have a guy who just a person who just does the ads. And they're the production manager, and that's their skill. You might have a breakfast team who is networked from another station. So they don't actually live in your region. They might cover a whole bunch of stations because, again, you got to pay the bills. And so the budget only stretches so far. So if we can get a really good on-air team does 2 stations, then we're kind of able to continue operating, and the budgets are looking a lot better. That's the realities of commercial radio.
So how do you know if you're a good presenter? How do you know if you're doing well? Like, are you getting any feedback since you don't know how the listeners are responding? Like with a podcast, you can see the downloads, and if your podcast is successful, you'll gradually get more downloads over time. It's great to see that data, but what you're doing, it seems like it's just an unknown amount of listeners out there. Is it basically just your boss saying, "Oh, mate, you're doing really well"? Are they listening constantly to your program?
Well, bless your heart for thinking it's such a positive thing. Bless. No one will ever tell you when you're doing a good job.
That sucks.
They will tell you when you're doing a bad job. They will definitely pick you up on that. And what you do is you go in for what's called an air check. and they'll take you into the office and go, if they're really great bosses, they'll go, let's have a listen to your program. And they'll say, what did you like about it? What did you like? They'll play maybe your first talk break where you're back announcing Miley Cyrus's brand new song and you're going into Taylor Swift's new one. Or probably wouldn't be Taylor Swift's new one because that's a bit of a clash. So you might be going into, say, an older Taylor Swift song and you're making a connection between the two. You've maybe said the name of one of them a little bit wrong. So you can sort of go, well, I sort of said Taylor Swift's name a bit wrong. I said Taylor Swift because I was trying to get it done really quickly. And they're like, yep, no, we heard that. Here's some other things you could do differently. If it's a challenging boss that you're working with, they will say, that was crap. That'd say much worse, actually. What are you talking about? Get better. This is not good. And then you go, how do I get better? I go, just go and get better. Go and listen to other people and do what they do. And so, yeah, a bad boss will tell you that you're crap and not give you any advice. A good boss will tell you that there are things you can do better and here's some possible ways you can do it. And
can I ask, did you have a good boss?
Some days.
Oh, right. See.
Some days it's great and it builds you up and it actually gives you confidence that you're on the right track. Other days it breaks your heart and makes you feel about that big.
So what are the qualities of a good presenter in commercial radio? I would imagine that you have to try to connect with your listeners, and I would think being authentic, being your authentic self is really important to people to actually get a sense of who you are. I know off ABC 24, Joe O'Brien, he's one of my favourites. It's not the parts when he's presenting the news. It's in between that where he's having a bit of a laugh with other presenters or he's introducing someone. It's these little moments where you actually see who Joe is, and he seems like a really nice guy. And that's it's those little moments where people think, oh, I'd like to sit down and have a coffee with him or have a beer with him. He seems like a nice fella. Is it the same with presenting? How do you connect with your listeners, and what are the qualities of a good presenter?
Well, let me say that in terms of radio, I'm not gonna say commercial radio and or the difference between ABC and commercial radio. Let me say radio is you want to talk to the person who is listening, so you're talking directly to them. I think is a great place to start. Because if they're listening to you, you can do them the courtesy of talking directly to them. So that's a really good place to start. Word economy is really important.
Can I just pause you there? Is it, back to that point, is it about knowing your audience and demographic?
No, not to start with. It's as simple as when you're watching TV, presenters go, later up in the program, we're going to spin the wheel for the cash cow and hopefully give away $10,000. We'll do that very soon. Radio doesn't do that. Radio says, you've got the chance to spin the wheel with the cash cow and you're going to have the chance to win $10,000. It's not we, it's you.
Personalised, yeah.
It's personalised. You're the person who's listening. You're the person who's listening to this podcast right now. So I'm talking to you, and for starters, thank you for listening. We're however long in, and you're still with me.
40 minutes.
That's amazing. I've just been prattling on. So it's about that as a really solid foundation. Talk to the person.
Number one, talk to the person.
Yeah.
Number two,
word economy.
Can you explain that a bit? Being efficient with your, not blabbing too much, being efficient with your use of words and your speech.
Yes.
So instead of saying something in 100 words, you could say it in 15 or 20.
You could.
Should we try that with this podcast?
It doesn't work well. I got to tell you. But that's an example of word economy. Yes. Shorter questions. Ask shorter questions if you're doing interviews. Why is that? Why did you start Dead Cow Gully, Tim?
It's a great question,
It
mate.
is a great question.
How much time you got?
Yeah. Oh,
So
we're
is it
about halfway in?
is it basically get to the damn point?
It's try not to. It is a little bit of get to the point. It's also a case of just know what you're talking about, know what you're going to say, know where we've come from, what you're doing, and where you're going. It's past, present, future stuff all the time. And that comes into play so much in radio, whether it's in interviews, whether it's in me just back announcing the latest Miley Cyrus song. I know that I've just played Miley Cyrus song. I'm going to tell you about this great event called Dead Cow Gully that's coming up in a few weeks' time that you really should get on board with. And keep an eye out for any last-minute spots. You never know. But otherwise, gear yourself up for 2024 because it's going to be big.
I'll just slide $100 across the table.
Absolutely not. Happily do that for free, my friend. Besides, I'm at the ABC. I couldn't take it.
You can't
take
that.
it. Oh. And also, very soon, I'm going to play another song from another terrific artist that I'm going to tell you about soon. Where have you come from? Where are you now? Where are you going? Same thing in interviews. You're doing it right now. Where did you start? Where did you start in radio? Tell me about your job right now. What are your hopes for the future? If you do nothing, if you don't have no idea about a person and you ask those 3 questions just as let's make that the bones of it, you'll have a great chat with the person.
Okay, so word economy was number 2. What's your next? Is there another one, mate? Or
past, present, future. Let's put that as number 3.
Oh, that's 3.
And get to know in terms of I can only speak for myself. And it's combine all of those and get to know your community. Because then when I might be talking to a person who is listening to the radio. I might be talking to Claire from Cloyna. And I'm going to talk to Claire from Cloyna because as if she's an old friend. Because she's been listening to the radio. She's called up and she said, "Hey, Roscoe, how you going?" Now, I never say my name's Roscoe on the radio. I'm Ross. That's who I am. My name's Ross. Hi, how you going? Great to be with you. But so if someone calls up and says, "G'day, Roscoe, how you going?" They are fantastic. I immediately love them because I know that they're listening and they might have listened for a little while, but I'm going to talk to them like they are my good friend because they're listening right now. So I want to know what they've been up to, how they're going. And I have an okay memory. So every now and then I will talk to someone, I will remember who they are, I remember that I've talked to them before. And so there's a lovely gentleman who lives at South Callan, and so I'll say to him, "Kev, how are your electric fence tickers?" Because he's got a whole collection of them. Mm-hmm. "Oh, they're really good, Roscoe. Yeah, I've got a few new ones." Mm-hmm. And he'll tell me a whole story about that because I happened to run into him at a local event where he had them all on display. So if you can just squirrel it away, get to know your community, whether it's through, I'm lucky I work for the ABC. I get to go out and do events all the time, go out and do pop-up radio stations and just talk to people about things they're passionate about. That's the best job. I get to go and talk to people who are on the day. Usually they're talking about the thing that they are most engaged with right now. That's not hard.
It's interesting, mate. So do you have to be a likable person to be on radio? Like, do you have to have a pretty good personality to start off with? Do you think you have to be more extroverted to be in this game? Or
now, word economy, Tim, one question at a time.
And, mate, can I call you Roscoe?
Of course you can.
Oh, wow.
Of course you can.
God.
You have anyway. You've been calling me Roscoe for years. To be on radio, you have to bet you will find that most radio people have an exceptional outgoing personality. They are lively, they are engaged, they definitely want to hear about everything that you're doing. And then when they walk out of the studio, they could turn into the quietest, meekest person you've ever known.
Sure.
Because some days it's like a switch. You could feel terrible. Last thing you want to do is actually get on the radio and be engaging and bright and bubbly. The thing to remember with radio is that they're like the microphones and all the equipment that gets it from here in the microphone to the transmitter. It's like an energy vampire. It will suck the vibe out of your voice. So you've actually got to dial it up, probably about 10, 20%. Dial up your energy just a little bit more just to sound normal, because otherwise you'd sound flat as a tack.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that can be really exhausting. And in the case of ABC, where it is live, where you aren't going in and pre-recording 99% of the time, you are on the radio live. You're hitting the button to play the song. You're doing everything yourself. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of takes a lot of energy to be on. Have that stage presence, if you will.
Yeah, I can relate to that, not in the same context, mate, but like teaching, I know you have to be on, like with your students.
Exactly right.
And you kind of have to be pretty out there, even if you're not that way inclined. You have to bring some energy and just enthusiasm to your job. When the shift's over, all I could think about is just going home and shutting the door and just recharging. Like on the weekends, I wouldn't want to go out to the pub or anything like that. I just want to recharge, so I'm ready for Monday.
Yep.
Are you?
I imagine
what about you?
I imagine too, when you're not 100%, you might be feeling a little bit flat that day. 100% the kids pick up on it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
They will be on it like that.
Big time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what are you like when you finish a shift? Do you still want to keep going out and keep the good times rolling, or do you want to go to a quiet place? And
depends on the day.
Yeah.
Some days I'll be really good and go, yeah, that was great. Let's keep it rolling. Other days some days it can be heavy. Some days it can be exhausting and emotionally exhausting. You know, I've talked about emergency broadcasting before. Those are days that are emotionally exhausting. And you walk out of the studio, you hang up your headphones and you go, I am cooked. I'm done. For today, I'm going to go and check out and quiet room, read a book, play my favourite music.
Like the flooding you had up in Bundaberg, the big floods you had. Were you in Bundaberg? How long have you been in Bundaberg for?
So I've been in Bundaberg since 2008. So I've been
there for the floods.
So I've been there for the 2010, 2011 floods, and I was there for the 2013 floods. I was there for the floods we had 2 years ago, where through the North Burn at places like Delarnell and Biggenden and further places down south here.
So so that would be challenging for you, because you'd be interviewing people who've lost everything and they're at their lowest, and you got to somehow. I talked about this actually in a previous podcast with someone. How do you? Because you can have secondhand trauma. Like I know therapists or counsellors can get this if they're just listening to these stories all the time. You can internalize it, and it can affect you. It can kind of rub off on you.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with it? Have you just learned how to deal with it over time, or does someone training?
We've had training.
Yeah, right.
So the ABC is really proactive when it comes to things like that, and recognising that these are traumatic events, and whether you go through them personally, because there's been plenty of times where there have been floods, cyclones, bushfires, and we've had staff members affected, or whether you're going through it because you're reporting on those circumstances. And so you're in the mud with talking to emergency service workers. You're talking to people who are, throwing out the entire contents of their house, wondering how they're going to get through this. You're human. It's hard not to be affected by that. And so emergency service personnel talk about find the differences. And I remember listening to a guy talk about how he would turn up to car accidents, and he had a daughter, and if it was a young girl who was around the same age as his daughter, he'd have to go look for the differences. Instead of going, that could have been my daughter, and go, oh no, it's a different color car. It's a different color car. Her car's got different tires. It's actually very different.
Sure.
Find the differences. Empathize with the person. It's the difference between empathizing and sympathizing. Empathize is I am empathizing with you. I 100% recognize what you're feeling. This is terrible. Sympathizing is me putting myself in your shoes. And that's where it can get unhealthy. That's where it can lead, where it can spiral, and you find yourself going down, spiraling paths where, those types of post-traumatic stress can lead, because they all lead to the same paths to sort of numb that pain, and it's really difficult. So it's empathize, don't sympathize.
Yeah. So without even realizing it, do you think people can, after like a bushfire or a flood, like radio presenters, TV presenters, they could sort of find themselves, oh God, I've actually been drinking a lot more lately, or I've just been a bit moody, or I'm just not feeling myself. That could be quite a common thing, right, after these big
absolutely
natural disasters, right?
I found, and I'll share this with you. It was the 2013 Australia Day floods in Bundaberg. And it wasn't just in Bundaberg, it was in the North Burnett as well. It came ripped through Monto. It came down through Mundubbera, Eidsvold, Gayndah, washed away citrus orchards. And Tropical Cyclone Oswald dumped all of this rain into the South Burnett too, which was all in the Burnett River catchment.
Yeah.
And all of that water has to go somewhere. And so it was barreling towards Bundaberg. We knew it was coming. The rain had been building over the course of the week. And then Saturday rolled around, and without asking, the whole team in the office turned up to work. Just turned up.
Wow.
We just turned up. We knew stuff was coming. We just turned up. We weren't asked to. Most people just turned up and just goes, well, there's work to be done. So I was at base. I was at the radio station. I was helping out with radio stuff. I was doing online stuff, so trying to get stuff out on social media, and all the while collecting photos from reporters out in the field, or people were sending them in and putting those into stories that is going to represent the situation. This is what's happening in the Wide Bay right now to the rest of the world, to the rest of the country, to the rest of the world. That's why you put those stories up. This is our story to share with the world. And so I was doing that. I head down, bum up, going through, processing photos, getting online, publishing, republishing, repeat. And then occasionally taking phone calls as well. And I got a call from this lady, and she said, what do I do? I've gone, hi, Ross. Ross here at the ABC. How can I help? She's like, what do I do? I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, I'm on oxygen. I'm in Bundaberg North. I'm on oxygen. I can't get out. What do I do? And I've just had a moment where I didn't know what answer to give her. And I said, if you're a little bit panicked, I said, if your life is under threat, you need to call 000. That's the first thing you need to do right now. You need to let them know where you are. And she's like, oh, I don't know how much good that'll do. Hangs up. I don't know what happened to that lady. I hope she's okay. I hope she got out. But that stuck with me. That was 23rd. So that's 10 years. It's literally 10 years this year.
Yeah. So is that conversation that was your kind of trigger?
That was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few other moments as well that have just sort of, sometimes they'll have an impact on you there and then, and the impact will be big. Sometimes they'll just happen to you and you won't feel the impact until 6-12 months time when you're actually that trigger occurs again, and you get brought right back to that moment.
Yeah, mate. It kind of reminds me. I mean, that was in the moment when it was happening, right? But often these things can come up months or years after, and it's often, you hear of soldiers in combat when they're actually in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm.
They can be quite fine, and they're in these life and death situations, and they're doing their job, and everything appears to be fine. But it's not until they actually go back home and they're in a quiet supermarket shopping that it all hits them. It's in these when there is no danger. So that's interesting, isn't it? And I think obviously the ABC would be on top of it in terms of with counselling.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because how many people passed away in that 2013 flood?
No one.
No one.
We were so lucky.
Really?
There were no deaths caused by flooding. There was, and feel free to correct the record here, but I believe there was one gentleman who passed away, but that was, I think he had a cardiac arrest. We were so lucky that no one died.
You copped it. Wasn't there didn't you have back-to-back years where you had flooding? Was that around 2013?
That was 2010, 2011. Yeah. So Bundaberg was flooded. It wasn't record-breaking floods, but it was pretty high. So clean up from that, and then 2013, Australia Day.
Just unlucky. Yeah.
And again, it was the whole region. It wasn't Bundaberg was the focus because large population centre, and also that's where the river flows through. But all of that water had to travel through communities in the South Burnett, communities in the North Burnett as well, Eidsvold, Mundubbera, where the five rivers meet and all that sort of stuff. It's, water everywhere, mate. Yeah, it's crazy.
Mate, let's take a quick break. I'll get a coffee and we'll come back. On June 17 at Dead Cow Gully, we are hosting the Australia Backyard Masters. This event will be simply epic. We have signed up the best backyard runners in this country, plus we have the ultra running legend Harvey Lewis flying over from the US. We also have the NZ7, which is a team of elite Kiwi runners who want to take on the Aussies. This will be a showdown for the ages, but we need your help. Most of the interstate and overseas runners don't have crew or any equipment. They're literally jumping on the plane and turning up to the event. So if you can help us out with some equipment like a marquee or a chair, or if you could volunteer as crew, we would love to hear from you. Can you please get in contact if you can help out? Just send me a message on 0439 666 079. We would really love your help and they would be forever grateful. Thank you. Rightio, Ross, we are back. You've got your cup of tea. Do you normally take a sugar in your tea?
I do not. No, I cut out the sugar probably about 5-6 years ago from the tea anyway. That was a rough day, but got through it. And so try not to, usually.
You a big coffee drinker? I'd imagine if you're in radio, coffee would be a big thing.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. Very much enjoy it. I've got 3 Bialettis, so 3 little mocha pots.
Okay.
So chamber on the bottom, full of water, cup in the middle for the coffee grounds, and then jug on the top for where it all goes. Screw it all together, put it on your hot plate, and in 5-10 minutes you've got piping hot coffee, and it's delicious.
And you drink it during your shows?
I will usually get one about halfway through. Some days I do, some days I don't. Sometimes I find that I actually function better without it. I will go into it with like just having, say, water, and the mind is a little bit clearer.
Really?
I'll have a coffee when the energy starts to dip. I don't go into it straight away. Yeah.
Mate, we might shift away from radio. I mean, there's probably more to say how you got from commercial to ABC, but I would like to talk about your running because the first time I met you would have been at a training run, you would have been probably 20 or 30 kgs heavier.
Mm-hmm.
How much weight have you lost, mate?
Probably about 60 kilos.
60?
Yeah.
So when I saw you, were you already on the road, were you? Because do you reckon you've lost about 30 since the first time I saw you? Or we're talking 2020, I believe.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say about 2021. 2020, 2021.
You're right.
So here's a good story. Okay. So 2018, I was probably I don't think I've actually ever told this in public, as it were.
No one's listening, mate.
No one's. It's just you. It's just us three. All right. So, okay, 2018, I was probably sitting at about 175, maybe 180 kilos.
Gotcha.
So on my frame, I'm 6'4". I've got broad shoulders, so I'm taller in the body. So I don't have long legs, but I have a tall body, so I could carry a lot.
So you're probably going to be like, for 6'5" and your frame, what's a healthy weight? 90 to 100 kg?
About
or a bit more.
A bit more, to be honest, because I've got because of the taller body. So anywhere from sort of 110 to 120 is actually healthy. About 115 is the point where you go from being like obese to just overweight.
Gotcha.
So on your BMI scale, and if you use that, some people do. Not everyone likes it. It cannot be a great measure sometimes, but in terms of a general gauge, it's okay. So I was overweight, to put it mildly.
Was there something that sort of slowly happened over time? Did or were you aware that you're overweight, but you just didn't have any like health scares to sort of act on it? Or
I was overweight when I started in radio, and then in 2006, as a radio station promotion at Eagle FM, launching alongside the second season of Australia's Biggest Loser, we did Goulburn's Biggest Loser. And so myself and 12 other people from the community signed up to go to the gym twice a day, 5 days a week, and maybe even a walk on Saturday. And it was a radio promotion. No one got booted out, but at the end we had a winner. And believe it or not, I won the thing.
You won it. And
I won it.
It was your program.
It was the station's program, and I won it. There were some people who were pretty dirty and thought it was rigged.
Was it rigged?
All the workings out and all the measurements were entirely independent.
Was there prize money?
By the gym. There was no prize money.
Okay, that's okay then.
And I lost. So I was trim and terrific and sitting pretty at about sort of 125 kilos. And really lean and good. I think I ended up losing another sort of 5 or 10. And then slowly over, say, 4 or 5 years, the weight slowly came back on. I couldn't figure it out. You know, I dabbled with running a little bit and discovered Couch to 5K. Did that a little bit. I ran a couple of 5K events. I did the 10K at the Melbourne Marathon in like 2008, and that was painful. But I did it, and it was really, really hard. But the weight just slowly came back on. Anyway, I got to 2018. I'd run incrementally, and it's like any other diet. Any other diet, you go have your ups and downs. Any other weight management, you go up, you go down. Oh, let's train for this big running event. I think I remember doing the Cane to Coral in Bundaberg, and that was an 8K, and trained up for that and lost a little bit, but not much. I still did it at probably about 150, 160 kilos. ran 8K.
Whoa.
Yeah, wasn't quick.
How are your knees doing?
My knees now are much better.
Great.
And it's so funny to have people run past you and go, "Good on you, mate. Keep going." And you're like, "Oh, they're just being supportive. That's nice." And
is
then
it patronising?
Oh, 100%. And then one lady comes past me and she goes, at the end, she goes, "Well done." And I said, "Oh, thanks. I really enjoyed it." And I didn't. But she said, "That's really good for you."
It's almost like you got a disability.
I was like, "What do you mean for you? What are you talking about, lady?" And I knew exactly what she was talking about. And you kind of have to shelve that and walk away. You have to shelve that and put it aside. The things like crossing the street and a whole car full of people, beeps their horn at you and yells out the window, "Why don't you lose some weight?"
Just some young people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who are that? Who are they to do that?
Yeah.
How does that help the situation? What makes you feel the need to comment on someone's weight like that?
Well, you were just a target. Like if it was something else they could target, they would do that. So the weight was something for you. But I mean, if it was this in Bundaberg? Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That would be a group of mates in the car, maybe showing off to other people and seeing how much of an arsehole they could be. But that's disappointing, mate. That's gotta hurt.
And that was common. That happened all the time, and
Wow.
it just chips away at you, and it hurts, and you can't show that, but it really does. And then I started getting just all these little complications, just little illnesses that come along with weight. I won't bore you with the details, but it's just all those things that come with extra weight, like your knees aren't doing so well, your hips are just pelvis is constantly out, because they're so tilted so far back, because it's compensating for everything else being so far forward. And my wife and I had talked about it for ages, and it took me a really long time to come to it. And so we together went and got bariatric surgery. So it's a gastric sleeve. They go in and they take about 2/3 of your stomach out and just remove it. So you're left with a longer esophagus and like this little pouch that holds about a cup. And because I dieted, I'd done keto, I'd done low carbs, I'd done every other diet I could possibly think of. I'd stolen my sister's Weight Watchers book. I'd run. I was in the gym. I could bench press 120 kilos, no problem. I could deadlift 160, 200 kilos at that weight because you got to carry it. So I was strong but I was in the gym, 2-3 times a week, even with that weight, trying to work it off. Couldn't figure it out. Went and got the surgery. Went and saw an amazing surgeon on the Gold Coast, and we both went in the same day. We got it together.
So was your wife overweight too, was she?
Yeah, she's lost about 40 kilos herself.
Wow.
She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing.
Wow, so you've done it together at the same time.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And so we were then left with, when we came out of the hospital, I could probably drink about a cup of fluid over the course of an hour, and then slowly over time built that up. Went from fluids to soups for like a week, 2 weeks, and then you get soft food for 2 weeks, and then you get like scrambled eggs for 2 weeks, and then you get casseroles for another 2 weeks after that. And finally, you make your way back to solid foods. And I'm just like, I just want crunch. I want something with crunch because everything's been soft.
Crunchies?
But here's the kicker. While I'm in hospital recovering, propped up on the bed, drips in, they're like, you need to drink this water. Otherwise we can't let you out. I'm like, okay, cool. Surgeon comes in. Ross, everything went really well. Really happy with everything. How are you feeling? I'm like, tired, bit worn out, but I'm okay. He's like, great. Just keep walking because they've blown you up with air to do the surgery, to cut the couple of holes in there and get in there and take it all out. And so the air's got to come out. So they say walk up and down the hospital and just fart. You're going to fart a lot, fart and burp, and just get it out of your system.
Have you got recordings of this, mate? Or?
I do not. Okay. No. And then I hear this, is Ross Kay here? I'm like, what? What's happening? And the surgeon goes, oh, yeah, he's in here. Come in here. And it's the guy, it's the doctor who the day before my surgery had done an endoscopy. And they just go down with a camera down your throat and just have a look around, make sure everything's okay, and make sure that they can do the surgery. Now, I assumed that everything was fine because we then did the surgery and I'm now in recovery. He goes, great, I've caught you. Just wanted to let you know that we've got the tests back. With the endoscopy, everything went well. Turns out you're a celiac. Yeah.
Ooh.
And I've gone, I'm sorry, what?
Really?
And he goes, yeah. Anyway, good luck with that.
So that explains the diarrhea, mate.
It explains so much.
Bloating, diarrhea.
All of a sudden, the fact that I couldn't lose weight, it didn't matter what I did, I just couldn't lose weight because I was constantly having a reaction to gluten whenever I ate it and wasn't being gluten-free because there was no need for me to be gluten-free. And it meant that my intestines were constantly in shock. So I wasn't actually digesting any food because all the little villi that are like little fingers that as food particles go past, they sort of grab them and you metabolize them. They're flat against the wall. So everything's just going straight through. My body's going, there was nothing in that. You need to eat more.
Yeah, so you're not actually getting all the good nutrients and the good stuff.
Bingo.
And it's just saying, well, we need more of this, so your appetite would have just been ferocious, right?
Yep. And I thought it was because I was working out, I was working hard. So obviously I'm fueling that.
Wow. If you had known this before your operation, I wonder if you even needed this in the first place.
That is the eternal question. We'll never know. And it would have been such a massive thing. Whereas at this point, I was already doing a massive life-changing thing where I was going from eating a full big person plate to eating a bread plate for a meal.
So essentially,
now it's just an extra bit.
Yeah. So your stomach now is smaller or
tiny.
One third of it what it used to be, or
it's about a cup and a half.
Yeah.
Capacity.
So the whole point of the operation is if you have a smaller stomach, you feel full a lot quicker from less food, and then obviously less calories are coming in, and then your body would essentially start eating itself, right?
Yep. Metabolizing. Yep. So your body sort of goes into shock for 6 months, and it thinks you're sick. So some of the your hair can get really thin. You can feel really tired. There's lots of other little side effects that come from it. But essentially, yeah, your body will eat your muscle as well, and that's why it was so important to maintain the exercise.
Sure.
And that's why it was really good for me, because I wasn't starting an exercise regime from scratch. I was already exercising 2-3 times a week. They're just like, keep doing that. Just keep doing what you're doing. And you notice the difference, and walk. Keep the walking up. And from the walking came the running. And then all of a sudden I'm like, gee, this 5K is a lot easier to run. Just feels so much better. I can't figure it out. I think it's the shoes. It's probably my new shoes. That's what it is. But all of a sudden, running became easier.
Well, mate, I didn't really recognise you. Apart from you, if you weren't, it was your height that gave you away. But
Yep.
I just looked at your face and I'm like, I didn't recognise you straight away. And you came up talking to me like you knew me.
Yep.
And it took a few seconds to register. Oh shit, this is Roscoe.
So I was still going through that process where I wasn't necessarily losing weight, but my body shape was changing. So I don't think I budged on between the training run, the first training run of Dead Cow that I did versus actual Dead Cow Gully. I may have lost on the scales 5 kilos, but my shape had changed dramatically because I was lean. I'd put on a lot of lean muscle, and just my shape had changed more into a runner's shape. And so when Dead Cow Gully, the 2022 Dead Cow Gully rolled around, I was ready. I was ready to go.
So take us back. Your first Dead Cow was 2021. Was that correct?
First Dead Cow was 2022, and then
Really?
oh no.
You've done this twice.
No, I haven't. I've done this twice. You're right. You're absolutely right. First Dead Cow was 2021, and then second Dead Cow was 2022.
Yeah. So how did you go in 2021? Do you remember? Did you do it?
Yes, I do.
You did 3, didn't you?
I did 4.
4.
And it was bad.
That's right.
The thing with Dead Cow, and anyone who has done Dead Cow or backyard ultras will attest to, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to figure out 6.7. You've got to figure that out and how you're going to run it. However you're going to run it, there's so many different ways that people run it. Fast, slow, intervals, whatever. However you run it, you got to figure it out. And so I'd spent 6 months with a running buddy figuring out 6.7. And it turns out that from the Bargara surf club, the Bundaberg Surf Club at Bargara, running to Monrepos, up to Monrepos and around the car park, and then running all the way to Oaks Beach at Burnett Heads, to the toilet block there, is 6.7 Ks.
So was this with Dave Holleran?
This was with ultra marathon runner Dave Holleran.
Gotcha.
He's been my running buddy
wow.
for years.
That's a pretty good mentor. Yeah.
I've had the best advice along the way.
He's a fellow Victorian.
He is. I don't hold that against him. He has trained athletes of every description. He's trained AFL umpires. He's trained NRL umpires. NRL referees. He's trained guys heading to the army. He's trained world champions. He's trained football teams. He's played in football teams. He's done it all. He's run ultras across every single desert in Australia.
Yeah, the first person to run every desert in Australia. Yeah. And I'll get him on the podcast one day. He's got world records. What's that crazy thing he did at
I'm pretty sure he's done
the
Eidsvold
obstacle course.
Obstacle course, where he did something like 500 kilometres of obstacle course.
So it's
bonkers.
It was very quirky what he did. He took him a long time to design this obstacle course. And it was just these sort of random different things like filling up buckets with sand and walking to a location, then rolling under a fence and then doing something else. And, but it took him ages to design this course. He's a fascinating guy.
He is. He really is. And having run with him for countless hours, he's got so many stories to tell. So much so that I sat down with him one day and recorded a big chat with him about his run across the Simpson Desert. And so if you're after another 30-minute listen after listening to this, just search for David and the Goliath Run on ABC. And you will find half an hour of audio there that tells the story of Dave running across the Simpson Desert.
I'll look this up. Is this actually on the podcast? Or is
this is on the ABC website. It just kind of lives there.
Oh, gotcha.
So it ended up becoming an episode, one of the programs that I presented that, and then put it up on the website, and that's where it lives. Gets a run every now and then.
Yeah, if you can find us that link, mate, I'd love to share that. Yeah,
happy to.
That's fascinating.
So I'm running with Dave. We're figuring out 6.7. We're getting our heads around it. we were getting to a point where we were running half marathons almost every weekend.
Really?
Yeah. And for me, that was huge.
That's
that was peak.
It's a different league.
And we were building up and we were building up and we were building up to peak on that weekend. Dead Cow Gully 2021. It was going to be huge. We'd connected with some other people at the training run where I came here and I did 3. And I really should have done more. I regret not doing more. But I did 3 and I felt comfortable about it. And we connected with other people like the amazing Tammy Wickham.
Tammy. Oh, what a story.
What a story. Absolute superstar and one of the nicest people you will ever possibly meet. She's a champion in the making. She's a champion, full stop.
So humble as well.
Absolutely. But she could be one of the greats. So connecting with wonderful people like that and getting taken along on this wonderful journey, getting set, right, we've done the big run where we did like 35 Ks, about 4 weeks out, then we're on the taper. You beauty, here we go. We're maintaining. Everything's going according to plan to perfectly peak at Dead Cow Gully 2021.
This is a big build-up. I feel like something's going to happen here. A spanner's going to come in the works.
Big spanner called COVID.
Oh,
Big spanner called COVID lockdown.
I remember that quite well.
I'll bet you do.
Oh, dude. So I had to cancel the event. Is this what happened?
Postponed. You postponed.
Postponed. Yeah. I actually thought I was going to cancel it, but okay. And yeah, so what happened on your end once I cancelled?
Heartbreak, despair, questioning everything.
What's the meaning of life?
Why have I done this to myself? And then Dave's just gone, oh, well, let's just run a marathon. Oh, okay. You can just do that? Yeah. You can just go and do that. So on the day the Dead Cow was supposed to happen, he and I went to our spot at the Bundaberg Surf Club. We started there and ran all the way to Burnett Heads and around to the marina at the Port of Bundaberg, which was about 10 Ks or so. Turned around, came back, did it again. And a bit more.
You did it and you wrecked yourself, and then Dead Cow was a month later, essentially.
So we didn't wreck ourselves. We peaked. We performed. Yeah. I was at 41.5 Ks coming into the finish line at the surf club.
Wow.
And maybe even with about a K to go. And I just said to Dave, I'm just going to push a little bit, if you don't mind. He's like, yeah, go for it. Go do whatever. And you stand up tall. Yeah, your eyes are on the horizon, arms are high, and legs are moving, and everything's working. Everything's perfect.
What a moment!
And it was just it was euphoric because I was owning this. I was going at such a good pace for me.
Sure, everything
felt good, and I just powered through. And I got to my 42.5 or whatever it was, a little bit over a marathon.
Wow.
And ran across whatever imagined finish line there was. Hit stop on Strava, because remember, if it's not on Strava, did you even do it?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Job done.
Well, mate, do you mind me asking what time you did that in?
Oh, it was like
6 hours?
5.5.
5.5? That's a pretty respectable first time.
First ever marathon.
That's pretty respectable,
I was
mate.
stoked.
Yeah, and from where you came from to doing that.
Yep.
And the thing is, no one knows what you've been through, and you would have passed people on your run. And
multiple times.
They don't know that you're doing a marathon unless they see you multiple times. But that's pretty amazing, mate. So that was really your dead cow moment.
That was totally it. That was, and it was everything went to plan beautifully. And then a month later, we got here.
You hadn't recovered, right? Your body hadn't recovered.
I'd recovered, but I was deflated. I was still a bit. There was a big question about whether it's going to go ahead, and then eventually it did, and it was like, okay, now we're going to build up again. Okay, that's fine. We can do that. This is another taper. That's all this is. And so it was maintained mostly, but wasn't quite as well as I wanted it. Wasn't quite as good as I wanted it to be, wanted the training to be. Got here and did a couple of things wrong. Camped here on site in a brand new swag.
Oh, mate. Book a hotel.
We'll get to that. Camped in a brand new swag. Set up the camping gear that we hadn't really used before. You know, got some supplies, but it wasn't really the stuff that I would have every day. So slept poorly in an uncomfortable and unusual bed.
Not good.
Waking up tired. Had breakfast that was not the usual breakfast that I would normally have before I would go for a run. And just was feeding off the energy and the excitement of other people. So I'm like, I'm here, I'm with it. This is fine. This is good. So that's lifting me up because everyone is just so pumped that it's on. We actually get to do it. How good is that? Breakfast did not agree with me. And so running through the first loop of dead cow.
Stomach issues.
Gut bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Total gut bomb.
Yeah.
And so I get to... So the first section of myself and a friend, another one of the nicest people I know, Peter Gunders, who's a great guy, an amazing runner, will just run for days and days and days. He also happens to work at the ABC as well. And we'll just, whenever we get together, we just talk and talk and talk. We've gone through and I know that you have your name for all of the segments of Dead Cow. I'm sure you do. Mm-hmm. But let me take you through ours.
Go for it.
Okay, so you start off at the start-finish line, and you make your way down the track-to-track. Okay, the track-to-track is one of the longest sections that will take you all the way to Dead Cow Gully.
It's about 2.1K, I think.
So you turn into Dead Cow Gully after coming off the track-to-track. And whether you go through the gully or whether you go alongside the gully, when you come up, that brings you into the cow paddock. Mm-hmm. So you're into the cow paddock. You're running around the edge of the cow paddock towards the halfway point. Mm-hmm. And it's around that halfway point where the ute is with the large tank of water.
That's right, yeah.
That's where the cow paddock becomes the cow track.
Yes.
So you're running along the cow track, and that will go along with 2 lanes for a while, and then we'll go down to single file, still the cow track. Mm-hmm. You will go down into it, up and down and up into another gully, and that's when you come along to Razor Ridge. Okay, so you're running along a whole section there where the barbed wire is right there on your right.
Razor Ridge.
So that's Razor Ridge.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's a good name.
So you're running Razor Ridge, and eventually you get to the next gully section, where you've put a little bridge down there in the past, and that's a big down and a big up. So that's the roller coaster. Mm-hmm. So you ride the roller coaster down and up.
So before we get to the roller coaster, how long is Razor Ridge for? Is it for quite a while?
It's a surprisingly long way.
This is where you're really close to the fence, and you're also the gully drops off.
The drop away is right there.
Yeah.
So you've got you're on the razor's edge literally with the barbed wire, but it's also a razor's edge because it's such a thin track.
Yeah.
You've really got to keep your wits about you.
To concentrate. So it's not a good outcome either way. It's either you run into the fence or you're down into the gully.
It's blunt force trauma versus cuts and abrasions.
Mate, we're in a training run. We had this girl, she would have been maybe 15 or 16 years old. She ran into the fence. I don't know how. Well, actually, I do know how because it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
So she comes back and she's got all this blood on her arm, and I'm thinking about lawsuits and all this type of thing. But she kind of laughed it off, and the parents laughed it off. Thank God. Mm. But
strap her up, keep going.
Yeah, I put a sign up there last year saying something along the lines of it was a letter to the runners. I think we called it Mr. Fence. And we just basically, I think the sign said, or the letter said, something about if you get too close, I'll bite. Regards, Mr. Fence, something like that. But yeah, I think if you're having a chat to someone there, 'cause it's obviously single file, but if you're just in your own world, you could come unstuck
very easily. And there's a few little ups and downs as well. There's a little point where you've got to jump over a log, over a big tree, in fact. And so it's a really challenging section where you've got to keep your wits about you. It's single file, so if you're having a conversation, it's usually me shouting at someone in front of me, or they're shouting back towards me. You go up and down the roller coaster.
Yep.
And then go through the gap in the fence, and then you're in the park.
The park.
It all opens up into this beautiful park-like area.
It's beautiful.
You might call it the Esplanade or something like that if you really wanted to, but it's a lovely part. You run through that paddock. You get through your next section of fence, and this is the extra bits where it curves around a little bit and snakes its way around the paddock to make sure that you're getting your 6.7. That's the go-kart track.
Great name. And I did put a sign up saying go-kart track last year. Yeah, love it.
Yep, that's the go-kart track. You come out of the go-kart track, you hit the driveway home, and then back to the start-finish line.
Mate, I had a chat to you in the break, mate. If you can redo that map for us and if you could name it.
Happy to.
That's terrific.
Happy to.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Those are the things that your brain comes up with when you're running Dead Cow Gully. But back to the first run. The actual event is on. It's 2021. I'm on the first loop of the day. 7 o'clock in the morning, the gun's gone. The bell has been rung. Away we go. And I'm going, oh, my stomach's not right. It's okay. I'll have time at the end of the first loop, because I'm running it pretty well, about sort of 40 to 45. Things are going well. No, I get to the end of the tractor track. I turn to go down towards the gully and instead veer off to the left to the very large bushes off to the side, and the gut bomb has done its job.
Those bushes are growing quite well.
Thank God. Actually. I'll bet they are. And it's just like, oh my God, what is happening? I can hear people running past, and I'm just like, you know what? It happens. And get up and keep going. It's fine. I'm looking at my time going, I've got time. It's fine. I dust myself off, pick myself up, keep going. So I'm feeling gross, and you just keep running. And then there's another station, another toilet. There's a toilet block just after the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yep. Got there.
Yep, that's right.
Got there for the long drop, and I was just like, said to the lady who was volunteering there, "Is that the long drop?" Yeah. Great.
That's just,
hit me again.
That's just your camp toilet. So that's your your tent toilet. And it was just a little thing you sit on, and we dug a bit of a hole. Yep. And you filled the hole.
And it hit me again, because it had all gone through again and flushed through, because it was looking to get out of my system, whatever it was.
Wow.
So I've got back after the loop one, and my wife was here. Funny story, my wife was here to support me, but only for like the first 2 laps, the first 2 yards, because she had to, she works at the ABC as well. She had to go to Beef Week in Rockhampton, of course. So someone was coming through to pick her up, and they were going to travel up there, so she could only be there for the first two yards. And she's like, how was it? How'd you go? I'm like, it was so bad. It was terrible. I need water. I need electrolytes. I need, this is what's happened. She's like, oh, this is not good. Let me get you some wet wipes. Thank you. That would be amazing. Got myself relatively cleaned up and continued. Second yard, great.
So that your first loop is probably the worst possible loop you could do, because you want to start off on a good foot and a good frame of mind, and it sounds like it was just disgusting and messy and
wasn't fun.
And you've lost probably fluid, electrolytes, and eventually, if you don't get that back, you're going to fade, aren't you?
Yes, you are. And I discovered that. Loop 2, yard 2, great. Yard 3, fantastic. Everything is feeling good. Everything's warmed up. You know, the body's feeling good. Number 4 hits, and I get about 20 minutes in. just starting to feel a bit lightheaded. Okay, I might just walk for a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Walk for a little bit. I've got time. It's fine. Walk for a little bit more. I'll run for a little bit more. Oh, I just got nothing in the tank. And then eventually I got to the park, and there was a couple of stars. There was a couple of spots that I was seeing, and I was doing that thing where you're sort of holding your hands out to steady yourself as you walk.
Yeah.
And one lady ran past me. She's like, "Are you right?" And I said, "I'm just a bit funny. I'm okay." And I eventually ran a little bit, walked a little bit, but whenever I ran, I just had nothing in the tank.
Yeah.
Made it back, went to go and find my other watch because I'm like, okay, we move on to phase 2, where it was, instead of just running the whole thing with little walks every now and then, we go to run for 10, walk for 5.
Yeah.
That was phase 2 to continue the maintenance period. Run for 10, walk for 5, and just keep doing that, and you will get this done, no problem. You will be back in time every time. Mm-hmm. Went to find my other watch, which was on the charge over in the shed. Couldn't find it. One of my buddies came over, Peter came over and said, "Roscoe, what are you doing over here? Are you right?" And I'm like, "I put my watch over here. I can't find it." He's like, No, come back over here to the tent. So I came back over, and he's just like, what are you doing? And I said, "I think I'm going to throw up." And he's like, "Okay, the bell's just rung. We've got to go." And I've heard the bell's just rung for 3 minutes.
I said
we've got to go.
The whistle, you mean?
The whistle, yes. Yeah. The whistle's just been blown. Mm-hmm. We've got to go. And I'd heard the whistle has been blown for 3 minutes. We've got to go. I'm like, I think I'm going to throw up. I don't know what's going on. And I was on all fours at this stage. Oh. And he's gone, "Well, I'm going to go in the corral, and you do what you got to do." I'm like, okay. So he's gone into the corral and got ready to go. And I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Get up, grab some lolly snakes, grab some water, and just go and get in the corral. Snakes, water, turn around, whistle, bell rings.
Oh, the bell rings.
The bell rings. And guess where I wasn't?
Not in the corral.
Nope.
Wow.
All over.
Yeah.
I'd made the decision. Yep, I'm going. Just go in the corral. Just walk for a bit.
So what time did you finish loop 4? Can you remember roughly what time you came in?
No idea.
It would have been quite late, right?
It would have been. It would have been with about 5 minutes, 6 minutes to go.
About 54, 55 minutes. And by the time you sorted yourself out, it was too late. It was
just too late.
It's amazing how quickly you can fade. Like, things can be going well, and then it just, all of a sudden, things come on very quickly. And it's very tricky to recover from that unless you've got like a dedicated crew, if you had 2 or 3 crew there who could say, yep, this is what you need, electrolytes, boom, boom, boom. But I guess what's the lesson here, Roscoe? Is it just to have better preparation leading in?
I spent probably 2 weeks after that event on a big piece of paper, big notepad, writing down plans for next Dead Cow Gully. Mm-hmm. Whole page. Just to get it or expunge it from my system, to get it all out on paper, and not only as a way of dealing with the failure, because I'd failed. Well, that was the hard thing, and it took me a while to accept it, and that's okay. But I'd failed.
Well, is it really failure, mate? You did a marathon a month beforehand, and then a month later you crack out. What's 4 loops? Is that 27, 28K?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fairly commendable, mate. But what were you thinking? You wanted to do 8 loops, right?
I'd wanted to do 8. I'd wanted to get to the marathon and have a go at cracking 50. Mm-hmm. And so I'd failed at my plan. Mm-hmm. I'd failed at what I had hoped for. It hadn't gone to plan, and I was devastated. And what was really annoying was how quickly I recovered. Like I sat down for a good 45 minutes drinking water, eating lolly snakes, and then you come back and you're with it. And, you know, Tammy Wickham came over to say hi. How you going? What happened? And how did you go? I'm like, I did 4. She's like, you didn't want to do that? And I'm like, no, I didn't. I went through like all the stages of grief in that on that afternoon.
Our Dead Cow Gully documentary has amassed 100,000 views. That is absolutely crazy. But look, it's not surprising in a sense because it's a beautiful doco which captures the spirit of the gully and inspires people to go out for a run and push their limits. While we love putting out that content, it does cost us some money. We think it's worth the expense, but you can actually help us out. All you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's just one click and it's free, so there is no cost. If we can get more subscribers to our channel, we can monetize and get paid through YouTube advertisements. This will help us pay for future podcasts and documentaries. So please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. So just hearing what your preparation to the start of the loop, it seems that if I went back and, well, what went wrong? Well, one, I probably would have tried to get a good night's sleep. So book a hotel with some air conditioning.
Top of the list.
Top of the list. Because if you're already at a sleep deficit, you're not going to be thinking straight that morning. And you know what? If you're not thinking straight, well, maybe you could have some bad food before the first sleep. You just not be thinking. Mm-hmm. If you've had a 7 or 8 hours, you're thinking clearly and you're like, well, let's just let's not eat anything out of the ordinary. Let's just stick to what I've been eating for the past 6 months. Just have that routine breakfast.
That was point number 2.
Yeah, and if you had that, I reckon you probably would have got your 7 or 8 loops, don't you think?
Yep. And so I vomited up this list over the course of 2 weeks and put it all on paper, the plan for next year. Even broke it down to things like, pardon me, 2 pairs of shoes, snacks for each yard, yard 1, yard 2, yard 3. These are the snacks that I will have during my downtime. These are the snacks that I will take with me. All the while, I'm remembering too that I'm working on a smaller fuel tank.
Oh, true, because your stomach.
Because of my stomach.
Gotcha.
So I'm planning around that. I'm like, okay, so I can eat here at the start-finish line, and then I can't really have anything to drink until I get to the gully. So I actually need to give it a little bit of time, because if things flush through too quickly, I can get really sick. And it's it'll come to me. But it's a whole thing where food gets flushed into your intestine too quickly, and you go down. You feel so sick. So I've got to manage that while also trying to keep up as fueled up as I possibly can. So then I can drink from the gully, and then I'm drinking all the way around, and then towards the end I'm eating a little bit so that then I can have a little bit more. And it's just this constant management thing.
So with your small stomach, would that mean that gels would be more suited to someone like you as opposed to large meals? Would gels, like liquid calories?
They can.
Or
It
can have the reverse effect sometimes.
I've worked with a dietitian to go, what do I need and when do I need it? And he helped me refine my plan, and he took my plan and he flipped it because I had food later and gels sooner, whereas he said keep the gels for later, have the food straight up while you can enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And just little things like, he said, Vegemite sandwiches. Just get Vegemite sandwiches. And so I made Vegemite sandwiches with gluten-free bread and had them there on standby.
That's calories, yeah.
That's calories. Yep. That's salt. That's vitamin B. That's going to give you a little bit of a boost. Flat Coke. So half a bottle of Coke and mix in half a bottle of water.
There's your calories. Yeah, yep.
Yep. There's your sugar. There's your caffeine.
Yep.
There's your calories right there. Just little things like that. It was Easter, so I got giant gluten-free hot cross buns.
Oh, lovely.
Covered in peanut butter and golden syrup.
Oh.
Absolutely delicious. I'll have half of that. That's all I can fit in, and then I'll continue on.
So, mate, you went back to the drawing board. Let's just fast forward to 2022.
Yep.
You've got your – what do? Do you book the hotel?
Yep. Hotel got booked.
Great.
Probably 6 months out.
Love your work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hotel got booked. Plan was made for snacks, ordering for all of the stuff that I needed. Happened about 2 months out. Looked at my support crews, who could help me, who couldn't, and figured all of that out. And was just building towards this. The training for 2022, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but it was enough. It was good enough. So when I finally got here, I remember the night before, I realised I hadn't gone through and made up all my sandwiches and partitioned out all of my, because I wanted little Ziploc bags that said yard 1, yard 2, and you just grab the bag. And that way my lovely wife could just pick that up and go, here's what you need. Let's two hydration packs. Take this one off you, give you this one. Put that on, away you go. Stuff like that.
It's very important, mate, because you want to know how many calories are going out per loop, and I think it's roughly 400 to 500 calories you're losing per loop. Depends on each person. So you want to record how many calories you're taking in and how many going out. And if you listen to Phil Gore, his podcast, it's all about the process, and his little personal aid station is just immaculate, and it's these minute details like shoelaces and just these little time-saving things. It all kind of adds up, and
fantastic.
It sounds like you've got the mindset to do that yourself. It seems like you actually enjoy the process. I
looked at, as a way of coping with all the ways it went wrong, I had to find solutions. I had to plan for it not to go wrong. If anything else went wrong that I hadn't planned for, hopefully I had enough adaptability, but that's just race day as well. Things happen. But I knew from previous experience, bad experience, how it could go wrong. And so I had to make a plan so that everything had the possibility to go right. And so I turned up here, ran the first yard, and it was great. Had a great spot here just next to the farmhouse. And
that's a good location, yeah.
It's a really good location because then I could run all the way in, then turn around, very quickly go back. We had two runners stations set up, and beautiful little piece of serendipity. The guy next to us was really chatty, and he said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Oh, look, I'm pretty good. I'm a bit worried about my stomach. I had some issues last year." And he goes, "Here you go. Have an Imodium."
Oh, wow.
I'm like, well, that makes great sense.
Was that a part of your plan?
It is now.
So just for listeners, where Roscoe was set up, it's just tucked behind the car garage. It's like the front of the white fence of the farmhouse. It's really good because you're kind of in the shadows a bit. You're away from the main kind of buzz and activity. It's a quiet place you can just tuck away, and you can quickly get back into that starting corral.
That's what it came down to as well. It was about getting back to the corral quickly. So as well as we're out of the way, because I know that I'm not going to be out here doing 20 yards like some of these other amazing people. And I continue to be in awe of them. I want to make sure that I'm running my own race, but I'm also not getting in the way of theirs. That was really important to me. So I can be over here in my own space, doing all the things that I needed to do, and I'm not in the way. That's really important. Because I don't think of myself as a runner.
Sure.
They're runners.
It can be quite intimidating too, being close to someone with like a whiz-bang setup.
Yep.
So take us through the actual event, mate, in 2022. Like, can you take us through first loop, second loop, third loop?
First loop was magic. Second loop was even better.
So just for the listeners, there's no Gully last year, so because of flooding. So it's an alternative course, so it's actually easier. There's no up and down. There's less elevation, probably possibly 10 metres less elevation per loop, possibly, yeah.
Yep. So you come to the end of the tractor track, you run down towards the gully, and it's basically down and then up, out straight away. You're in the cow paddock, but you're running along the edge of Dead Cow Gully. So you're still getting the same length for the most part of the actual gully itself without a lot of ups and downs. It's perfectly, nice and stable, and it's on grass, so it's a little bit softer on the feet as well. So it's fantastic. Everything's feeling good. I'm there with amazing runners like my friend Peter, who I've mentioned, another wonderful runner, and turns out works for the ABC as well, a gentleman by the name of Dan Prosser.
Oh, Longreach boy.
Longreach boy.
He's coming back this year.
Of course he is, and he's going to do great things. Great storyteller as well. He's his partner in crime. She's out with a little video camera taking videos of his run at Dead Cow Gully. So we're running together for a few yards, and everything's going great. As I said, my training wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. And so when I was running the 5th yard, I was talking to a gentleman that I'd met the previous year. He was from Harvey Bay, and he just goes, "How you going?" I said, I'm working now. He goes, "Yeah, you sound, the breathing's a little bit heavier, so I'm working harder." I was like, okay, cool. Run for 10, walk for 5. That's when I switched gears to go run for 10, walk for 5.
What loop's this?
This is number 5.
Oh, this is 5.
This is 5.
Okay.
So I'm just like, okay, this is getting tough now. I'm lined up and I've taken off on loop number 5. So I've already beaten last time.
Yeah. And your stomach's feeling good?
Everything's going according to plan. It's going great. Vegemite
Fantastic.
sandwiches are going down a treat. They're keeping me going. It's fantastic. I get to the end of loop 5 and I'm buggered, exhausted. Anyway, my lovely wife is there and she's like, okay, here you go. Here's your food. Here's a bottle of water I've emptied half out and replaced the rest with Coke. So you've got your flat Coke. Drink that now while you've got time. I'd come in with about 5 minutes to spare, so about 55. I'm just maybe even 53, 54. I'm like, okay, so I've got a little bit of time, but not a lot. That's okay. I can do 6. I can do this. And you know what? If I start 6 and even if I come in after the hour, I've still done 6. And so I went, yeah, we're doing this with a lot of encouragement and support from the people around me. So I've lined up in the corral for 6 and taken off. Run for a bit, walked for a bit, run for a bit, walked for a bit. Got to one of the maybe about 1.5 km down the tractor track and started getting some wicked cramps. Oh, it was amazing.
So your body's kind of hit a wall.
Yep. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Got eventually to the ute at the halfway point and looked at my watch, and it was 30 minutes.
Ooh.
And I'm like, okay.
Better get moving.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I wasn't defeated because I'm like, okay, you're halfway and it's at the halfway point. So you can do this. You've walked quite a bit of this first half. So if you just run a little bit more, you're fine. And then kept on making my way around through the cow track, double file, then single file, running along Razor Ridge, up and down the roller coaster. And then there was a point in the park where there was this tree that I was getting to, and I was getting there anywhere from sort of 42 to 41 to 42 minute mark. And I'm like, okay, this is my gauge. This is where I know where I'm at. And I was making it in comfortably. And I looked at my watch and it was about 49. And I went,
You probably still got,
Ooh.
over a K at that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought, ooh, well, okay, this is it. What do you do? I was having this conversation with myself. It may have been in my head. I may have just been vocalizing it because I was really tired. And I just kind of said, well, what are you doing? Are you going to push a little bit to get there and make it? Or are you okay with walking and because you're very tired and not making it, knowing that and living with that? And are you go or you no go? And I just went, no, I'm go. We're go. This is it. I'm not having that regret. I've been burned from the previous year. I'd been hurt so much. 6 was my goal. I wanted to crack it. So I went and, okay, the feet started to lift and I maintained the pace. And I think I got in with about 2 minutes to spare.
Wow. So you completed loop 6.
So loop 6, done.
Wow.
In the can. You beauty.
Did you get a big cheer when you came in?
They started cheering because everyone's in the corral.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They've started cheering me on as you start to walk past where all the tents were.
Yeah.
Good on you, mate. Keep going. You got this. Come on. And then someone who knew me, come on, Roscoe. Come on, Roscoe. You've got this. And then everyone's like, come on, Roscoe. And it's the best. It is the best. And then you like, then the ego kicks in and you go, well, if I'm going to cross this finish line, I'm going to look good doing it. So the back stands up. You stand up again. You're looking to the horizon. The form improves and you power through. And I got to that finish line and I remember I hit you right there on the line and you were like, mate, what is that? That's your 6? And I'm like,
I remember it well. Yeah. Inspirational.
And then my wife's like, okay, here's your bottle of half Coke, half water. Here's your pack, and just guides me back into the corral.
Get back out there, buddy.
Yep. And then talking to some other guy who I'd had a couple of conversations with, my mate Peter, my mate Dan. They're just like, just do it, just start. And I'm like, it's a lot. And they're like, that's fine. You've got this.
Don't think about it.
Don't think about it. Just do it. Yeah. And then the buzzer goes and the bell goes and you just go.
You're out on loop 7.
So I'm out on loop 7 and I just walked and kept walking. And then one guy was walking with me and he's talking it through with me. He's like, if you want to run, just run. But you know you can do this. And I got to – and so I would walk and I would run and I would – and then at some point all of the pain catches up with you.
Yeah.
Because I'd walked too much and I went, I think I'm good. I'm happy. I'm actually really satisfied. And so it took me 40 minutes for my heart rate to drop.
Yeah. So you realise at that point you are going to time out on this loop.
Yep.
Pretty early on.
And it was about the halfway point.
Yeah, wow.
I'd got to the halfway point and it was 35, 40 minutes. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's okay. And I stopped and I sat on the ute and I had about 3 or 4 bottles of water. I had a couple of gels and I just walked and I just, if you can hear the kookaburras in the background, it was a day like today, maybe a little bit cooler, a little bit more overcast, and I just enjoyed it. I walked and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that would have been a walk of satisfaction because you had won, I think anyone who times out, you're not going to have those what if questions. If you had sat down in the chair and said, I'm not going to do loop 7, you'd have the what ifs. But you left it all out on course and mate, everyone found it inspirational when you came in for loop 6. Like it was one of those stories because obviously Zach was a big story last year.
Massive. Just so
wonderful. But I think your story stands out as well because you were really suffering and you really wanted it. And the fact that you went back in and you started 7, it just says a lot about you as a person. Like I think you're obviously you're really passionate about running, and you really want to better yourself. And it's so much more than just running. There's other stuff going on. And I'm sure the story you told before about those people calling you fat driving past in the car, I'm sure.
Thanks for bringing that up again. It's great.
I'm sure you're proving those assholes wrong.
But you know what? They don't even deserve a fraction of my attention. They really don't. So it was entirely not about proving them wrong or proving anyone else wrong or right.
Yeah.
And you've got to do it for yourself and what's in here.
Exactly.
And whatever barrier you need to break through, whatever point you need, whatever goal you need to hit, you've got to do it for yourself before anyone else, because that's the beautiful thing with running. No one else is going to do it for you. Exactly. You've got to do the work and you've got to do the event.
There's no shortcuts.
No, there's really not. And so walking that 7th loop and really enjoying it, I actually came back, walked across the finish line. It had helped with my recovery so much because I just walked so much of the soreness off. When I say so much, I was so sore. But I'd brightened up, and that's when recovery started. And
Great.
And I started to think about, you know what? I think that was okay. So I clocked 6. I walked the 7th. So I'm going to call. I've got the dead cow piece of timber that says 6.
Yeah.
I know I've done 7. So that's what, my 47, 48 Ks, whatever.
It's close to an ultra.
That's close to an ultra. Well, I mean, technically it is an ultra because it's over an ultra, but it's close to the 50 Ks.
It is.
And all of a sudden that goal of going, I want to crack 50 and do it well, that's in sight. So I've had some stuff happen to me in the last 12 months where I'm out. I took myself out of the running for this year, but it means 2024, game on.
Well, mate, we'd love to have you back. Just on a final point, Roscoe, what do you say to people who, like yourself, a couple of years ago just started getting into running? They're looking at a backyard ultra, and I think a lot of people focus on the higher end, like these people who are doing big loops, 24-hour plus, and it's very intimidating. And they're like this, I've got no business going to an event like this. There's no way I can compete with these people. But I really think the most movement is really in loop 3 to loop 15. So if you look at people's performance levels, if you looked at a graph or a set of data, you can double or triple your PB in distance. And that kind of happens loop 3 to loop 15. I've kind of looked at it. That's where the most movement is and the most improvement for people. So it's the lower levels where all the magic actually happens. Because the higher levels, a lot of these people that they've already done 100 miles, to them it's some are doing it for the first time, like Tammy Wickham, and that's incredible. But it's the lower levels where the magic really happens, I think. And that's, for me, that's what I love. That's what I love watching and love talking to people who sort of somehow make it through.
Yeah. And look, the highlight reels and the stories that we tell about Dead Cow Gully are of the people who have gone the long distances, run for days. The absolute amazing people like John Pearson.
Yeah.
What a champion of a man. And just one of and another incredibly nice man,
friendly fella
as well. One of my goals last year, written down on the notepad. If you're running with John Pearson, stay with him. Stay with him because he knows where he's got to be at any given time.
Exactly.
So if I've caught up to him, don't pass him. Stick with him.
That's a good strategy.
It's a very good strategy. It worked for me. And so a couple of times, and I did tell him that last year, and he was very, very good about it. But to go back to your question, my advice for people who are thinking about taking on something like Dead Cow Gully is that, yes, we talk a lot there's a lot of talk about those people who go the longer distances. They are, there's 10 of those. There's another 190 people at least in the field who are doing it for their own reasons and going their own personal best distances. Doesn't matter what that is. This is an this course, this event is an opportunity to push yourself beyond where you are right now and to make yourself a better runner, because you've got to think strategically. You've got to push yourself to where you want to be, whether that's day running, night running, whether it's two yards, doesn't matter. It's another opportunity for you to set goals and push yourself in a really supportive community. So whatever stage you're at or whatever you're aiming for, this is the event where you can do it.
Yeah, mate. And mention this in other podcasts, and you said it as well. It's the support from strangers, really, which is the most heartening thing. Like people hanging back with you, checking up on you. People like John Pearson who likes the slower loop. And I think that's a good strategy, mate. I mean, if you stuck with JP, you've almost got like a personal coach,
pretty much.
And he's an Australian representative. So, but I don't want to swamp John Pearson this year, but that's not such a bad strategy because he's very giving of his time. And
running with people like him, running with my running coach, mentor, and buddy Dave Holleran. If you find these people, ask them questions, because someone like Dave will not only know the answer, he will know the training routine you have to do to get there, or the injury maintenance plan to help you improve. Whatever it is, he will have an answer. It's amazing. So you're drawing on this amazing pool of knowledge as well.
Well, mate, look, we've gone over 2 hours. I think you probably have to get back to Bundaberg at some point.
Probably.
I'll have to get back to race prep. I'm sort of busy. You've seen the kitchen, mate. There's alcohol, there's water, there's Coke, there's aid station food.
And most importantly, there's ear tags and plenty of them.
Ear tags. Just wait here, guys. I just want to show you something. So this is an idea I had. I've already done a little thing on social media. So you've got this is your greenhorn.
Yep.
You would have been, if you've a veteran, if you've been here.
I was on my second, so I do have a yellow.
But I really think the purple is what you want. This is, if you've won Dead Cow, you are purple, and you will forever be purple. So,
because you hit your purple patch.
Purple patch, and it's like a regal colour. So Barry Loveday and Ryan Crawford, they could turn up in 10, 20 years. They will forever be a purple. So you'll really stand out on the wall, on the fence out there. So, I think that could be pretty cool.
I love it.
Addition.
Fantastic.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for your time.
Tim, thank you so much.
See ya.